Welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers. My name is Maggie Gordon-Walker, and I'm the founder and director of Mothers Uncovered. Join us as we explore and share the incredible stories of mothers when life has thrown at them challenge and, in some cases, trauma. Discover how the skills we learn in matrescence, which means becoming a mother, can teach us about more than motherhood. They teach us also about unconditional love, resilience, and acceptance. Welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers. My name is Maggie Gordon-Walker, and I'm the founder and director of Mothers Uncovered. Join us as we explore and share the incredible stories of mothers when life has thrown at them challenge and, in some cases, trauma. Discover their secrets and how the skills we learn in matrescence can teach us about more than simply being a mother. They teach us also about unconditional love, resilience, and radical acceptance. I'm joined today by Kelly Thistlethwaite. She has two daughters who share a birthday 4 years apart. She's joined us today to tell her matrescence story, which means becoming a mother. Kelly is an experienced trauma-informed yoga and breathwork instructor working with pregnant women and new mothers. She also delivers nervous system education and regulation techniques to aid the general health and well-being of mothers. She's a matrescence coach, combining it with her skills and passion of somatic approaches. She has a particular interest in supporting women following birth trauma and loss, to build capacity within the nervous system and to feel safe and connected in the world again. Her passion comes from her pain and that of her clients, and led her to co-founding a pioneering online support platform called Fly Mama. Kelly believes that we can all heal following our experiences and be the women and mothers that we desire and deserve to be. Kelly, welcome.
Hi, Maggie. Gosh, I feel a bit emotional just from that lovely intro of your, what you're here to do with the podcast. And yeah, gosh, yeah, it's so nice. It's genuinely so nice to be here and be talking. I think these spaces and spaces to tell our stories are so important. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and it's a good motivational quote for us. We all desire and deserve to be happy. All humans do.
Yeah.
So, Kelly, let's start by asking you, where in the country are you based, and is this the same area as you grew up in?
Yeah, so I'm from Huddersfield in Yorkshire, in West Yorkshire, God's country. And yes, I grew up here. I've moved away to study at university and work, but I'm back here now. Yeah, that's where I am.
Great. So, Kelly, tell me what we would need to know about you and anything about your background and upbringing to understand how you would describe yourself as a mother.
Oh, well, I guess I could start with I'm a true Northern lass, down to earth, says things as they are. And yeah, just, I guess, my love of the outdoors and a simple life. Really that's rooted in my upbringing and that real pull to family and the importance of family and so in my mothering, moving back home to be closer to family was key for me. And just bringing my girls up, I've married a proper Northern lad as well. Just in a really lovely environment outside amongst the countryside, just spending time with people that matter really. Is something.
You're from a big family, Kelly? Are there lots of you?
Quite big. Yeah, my mum was one of 5. My dad's one of 4. Most of my mum's side have had at least 2, 3 children, some more. So we've got, like my big fat Greek wedding, they've got that massive family and everyone's tall and loud, and that's my family, and they're so beautiful and kind and funny. So yeah, that's
that sounds great. Sounds like the best place for a party, definitely.
Yeah, well, we have a good games night, yeah.
I bet you do. So, okay, so that's lovely to hear about that lovely, big, loving upbringing.
Mm.
So let's get on to you. And you described your first pregnancy as fairly straightforward. You conceived quite easily and felt reasonably well throughout the experience, but the birth wasn't so easy. Can you talk to us about that birth?
Yeah, I can. Um, yeah, I guess I went into probably like a lot of people really, um, pregnancy and birth in particular, just thinking, yeah, great, I've done this hypnobirthing course and I can absolutely do this. And I think that's really important to feel that. But I don't think I had a real breadth of understanding of the ways it could go. And so for me, coming at the other side of an experience that was really, really unexpected and traumatic, yeah, that's another reason why I think it's really important to share these stories. So yeah, for me, I was the fittest I've ever been going into the pregnancy. So when it came to birth, I've done like endurance Ironmans and stuff like that, and I was like, I've totally got this. This is mind over matter. I'm a yoga teacher. Everyone keeps telling me I'll just breathe this baby out. And like I say, I'd done some birth prep workshops and a hypnobirthing course, and um, but nothing could have prepared me really for um, yeah, just how vulnerable I felt, how alone in a very long labor I felt. Um, so I had, yeah, it was nearly 4 days really, my labor, and I was back and forth to the local hospital. Um, and I think there were several key moments within that time that I now know um, led to and added to the experience being traumatic. I know that maternity services are just completely strapped and on their knees and can't sit with women and spend time with them. And we know that's what we need, especially when we're in pain, your discomfort, whatever
Mm.
language you want to use. And I think especially first time round, if you are in a lot of discomfort and pain and feeling a little bit alone in that, that makes it even more terrifying. So I just remember, yeah, going back and forth to the hospital and yeah, lots of examinations to see where I'm at and not progressing, failure to progress. And just thinking, oh my God, if it hurts this much now, I'm not even 1 centimeter. What is this going to be like? And that was for about a day and a half, actually. I was in that mindset of, oh my God, I'm so scared. Actually, this is really hurting. And I guess midwives sadly not having the time to sit, and say, everything's going to be okay. Labor can be like this, and just reassure me really. I had my little girl. This was a year before even lockdown when people could probably sit next to you and make you feel safe. So I just have so much empathy and sympathy for women that birthed in COVID because I imagine there'd be that even more disconnect. But it felt like that in my labor, sadly. My husband's amazing. He was there for me and with me, but he was going through it as well and unsure, why I was in this much pain. And yes, you expect to be, but so I think for me initially it was that needing someone to, be there and sit with me and validate actually, yeah, I can see you're in pain, what can we do to support you with that? Um, and then it
I
was
remember that so well because the midwife I had a reasonably long first labour, and I remember at one point her saying, "It's all right, I'll be here to the end," and then suddenly after one horrible contraction, she wasn't, and where's whatever her name? Oh no, she's finished her shift, and I literally felt like my entire world had fallen apart. I thought she was going to be there for me, and now who's this stranger? Very
yeah.
low point. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from.
When we're in pain, when our nervous system, when our bodies feel fear, we are vulnerable. And so having key people that make us feel safe is so important. And that's no fault of my, husband's or anyone's sort of birthing partner, etc. I guess we look to those medical professionals, don't we, in those situations to for someone to say this, you're going to be okay, yeah. So that's what I needed anyway. And I can see now I didn't get that. And that led to, and then obviously we don't progress. Yes, for all the reasons, physiologically our body isn't ready just yet, and labor can take some time. But also if we're feeling scared, that doesn't support us, does it? Oxytocin is definitely not flowing. So yes, I was there with my candles and my soft lighting and my music and all of it, and sadly, there was that fundamental, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I progressing over this length of time? How much is it going to hurt when I do? They're telling me to just go home and watch a video and watch a film and eat something nice. And, do they believe that I'm in this much discomfort? And so, yeah, there were lots of that really for me. And so I didn't want to go back. I was like, I'm staying at home as long as I can. I'm not going back in. Because then I was like, God, I'm that girl that's gone in and come home twice. You can't do it a third time, So anyway, I went back in and I had
How long was the length of time of all of this? Is it sort of two days now?
2 days that, yeah.
Yeah.
Which
And you were at your due date. You weren't early or anything. It
I
was.
was a few days before. Yeah, I was a
Okay.
few days before. And so that's a long period of time to be scared and in pain, actually.
And probably not sleeping, I would imagine.
Absolutely not
Not
sleeping.
sleeping, not eating really, because you can't eat when you're in pain.
No, and
Yeah.
I had the app. It was 3 every 10 minutes. It was for a certain length of time. And over the 2 days, it absolutely did slow down and they eased off things, and then they'd come back. And so yeah, then went back in, but then there was a lot of emergencies happening. So I was in then a side room, my husband and I by ourselves, and I was progressing then. So the labor was the pains were increasing. And we now know, my little girl, the position of her and things like that, stalled labor. And so just really uncomfortable in this side room for about 4 or 5 hours. I think someone bobbed in to ask me if I want some toast. I was like, flipping heck, I love toast, but I'm all right at the minute. I've probably the only time I've said no to tea and toast or something. I was like, no, I don't want toast. I want someone to come and help me. And all
And
the
you can't eat when if your mouth is full of food, you can't also scream in pain. That's what I thought. I remember with this meal. So I can't eat this. I'm shouting and screaming.
time,
What's
that's it.
going on? Show.
In this little side room with no windows and just in pain and, so tired by this point as well. And then I just remember, all along I was like, don't want pain relief, don't want da-da-da, I want my body to be ready. I want to birth without any intervention and things like that. And so I was getting to the point I was like, okay, I don't know what to do here. Is this normal? No one's speaking. And so then somebody else came in who I think he was a bit more sort of, so he wasn't a midwife, he was an obstetrician and just came in and said, right, let's examine you, let's see what's going on. And he definitely brought my waters. It wasn't just an examination. And again, this was a key moment for me as to why that was so traumatic, because there's absolutely no bedside manner, just straight in, this big guy,
Very
massive.
invasive. Yeah.
You don't know who he is. I mean, we are vulnerable in that sense as well. We are completely opening up the most private part of our bodies, and this is difficult to do. Yes, we're in labor and we don't really care, but actually we do, in the way that that's carried out. Any internal examination, consent is key, isn't it? And I didn't want my waters breaking. It was extremely painful. So then he was like, right, your waters are broke, so there we go. Yep, you are 4 centimeters, or and I was just like, right, okay. And so in my mind, I was like, look, do what we need to do. I want to have this baby. I don't want to be in pain. And then the midwife came in and said, so you can still go downstairs to the birthing centre and have a go at delivering your baby, naturally in water, like I'd wanted. So then I was really confused, because I was like, well, yeah, I do really want that, but I'm so tired and I'm in a lot of pain. So we went downstairs and I had, I think, pethidine to get an hour's sleep. So the midwife said, let's give you this, see if you can get some sleep. So I had an hour's sleep, and then I went into the pool. And I actually really enjoyed that part. I felt really empowered. I was progressing. I got to 7 centimeters. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to do this. I can do this. Um, and there was a point again where the midwife, who was lovely actually, he was lovely. But he did say, I think you need to go upstairs now, you know. And I was that tired that advocating for myself in that moment, I didn't. And I just thought, okay, he knows that is something wrong or is something. Um, and since I had two debriefs, that there wasn't actually, it was that I looked tired, which infuriated me because it is tiring work and I was doing it. But anyway, we can come back to that. But yes, then I was taken upstairs and that was so painful coming out of the water, getting up to the ward, again having to wait for somebody to come and have, because I was like, okay, I can't do this without any pain relief now. I'm exhausted. The water felt amazing. I didn't feel in as much pain in the water as I did when I was upstairs. And then I had to wait for someone to come and give me an epidural or a spinal block. Do you know what? I can't remember which one it was now, but yeah, big injection in my spine. And that didn't go, that wasn't too straightforward. And it was just, I was just on this cascade of intervention then, basically. We were upstairs then for 9 hours on with the oxytocin drip. And I just remember saying, I was in and out of like, I was so tired. And I said, okay. She said, well, you've gone from 7 to 5.
What? How can
And
you
I
go
didn't,
backwards?
well, I didn't know you could go backwards for one.
I've never heard
Um,
of that.
I've never heard of that as well. And she said, so let's
Oh
see
my
if you
goodness.
progress more. And I was laying on my back, all the things that we know, could they have suggested for me to lie on my side with a peanut ball and have a position which would encourage the opening of my cervix whilst I was contracting because I couldn't feel anything then. And again, you just put your trust into who's there to care for you, don't you? And anyway, I remember saying, okay, I've gone back to 5 here. What happens now? And they said, right, by 9 o'clock tonight, if you haven't gone back to 7 or more, then it's an emergency C-section. And this was 3.5 days by this point, and that's what ended up happening. I hadn't progressed anymore. So I was down on the table having this C-section, and I just remember a conversation with a friend of mine, and she said, sometimes when they reach in for the baby, you can't breathe. So I remember thinking, okay, I've just got to exhale, I've just got to breathe, don't panic, don't panic. And again, I was so tired. And my husband was right next to me, and I felt like someone were just it for me, it was quite an uncomfortable feeling. And there were some complications throughout it. They'd taken our little baby girl. They'd shown her to us, which was lovely. And then they took her away to do all the checks, etc. And that was another point for me when I did my debriefs. Looking back, that was traumatic. I didn't realize how important, but it was absolutely the fundamental piece for me to hold my baby when she was born, to be
Yeah.
part of that moment, actually to have that moment, and to feel like she'd sort of gone elsewhere. And I just remember saying, I am so tired. Can I close my eyes now? Now I know she's safe. And so I closed my eyes. And then the next thing I remember really was coming round in the side room and my husband brought her over to me. But I was just so out of it. I'd had a lot of different pain relief. It was nearly 3.5, 4 days by that point. Um, and so yeah, it was 3 days then we were in hospital. Lily May had to have a little cannula. I had intravenous antibiotics. I had a catheter for that time, and I just remember sitting in the bed and someone saying, let's try to feed your baby now, and trying to bloody sit up and being in so much pain and thinking, oh my God, what just happened?
Mm.
And actually, those thoughts didn't come as intensely until a week or so later because I was just exhausted and out of it. And there were points within it and people that provided care for me that were really, really great. But then there were key moments and points within those 4 days, 7 days really, that that could have been so much better, you know. And it massively informed the way I entered my motherhood, my mothering, my matrescence. I didn't realize at the time, but yeah, just with all the way I physically healed, that was massively delayed. With my ability to bond with my baby, I loved her. I was so in love with her. But my ability to regulate and co-regulate with her was massively hindered because I was so hyper vigilant and anxious.
Yeah.
And
Are there any particular incidents that stand out from you? Maybe the first month or two afterwards, something that really crystallized what you talked about, that feeling of disconnect and having not managed to
well, I
process what had happened.
I think you're that busy, aren't you, getting used to mothering? And for me, breastfeeding then as well. I wish I'd known how important and the way that our birth informs our ability to heal and breastfeed. And because, obviously your body, when you have a C-section, it doesn't get that same physiological recognition that you've birthed your baby. And so your milk is affected and your breastfeeding journey can be affected as well. And I didn't know that. And I just remember it was so painful. And I just thought, I failed at birth. I am not failing at this. And what a sentence, that was massive. And I didn't realize, but that was repeating in my mind, and I just remember being stood at the fridge actually. I got home because, I mean, Christ, they have this massive surgery and they're like, right, get up on your feet and start moving. Like, fucking, is that right advice? Like, I feel like everything's going to fall out. Anyway, I was stood at the fridge and I was like, God, Mum, I failed. I didn't do it, did I? I failed. And she said, don't say that. You absolutely did. And I think, again, what I needed was someone to sit with me and say, you know, what do you feel? And let me talk about it because everybody just said, oh, but you didn't. And look, the main thing is that your baby is here and they're healthy. And that is massive, don't get me wrong, but it's not the only thing that matters. And when we say
It,
that to women that have been traumatized in their birth and feel the grief of an experience that is pivotal, it's such a portal, isn't it? And I know this now, having had very, very luckily a extremely empowering birth afterwards, how important it is. The way we birth is so important, you know.
it
So,
does it continues that myth. It's just like, oh
well,
well, you're alive and your baby's okay, so let's put that behind us. But if you don't give women the dignity to process that properly, they are carrying that around with them. We work quite a lot as well with women with birth trauma, and
yeah.
there's an 18-month waiting list for them to have an NHS appointment
Mm,
because there's just such a state the poor NHS is in, and they're saying I am traumatized. And it's
yeah,
until they actually have the chance to process that, walk through it, talk through it with other people, then they can even begin to heal.
absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think I didn't recognize and acknowledge fully that actually that wasn't okay until my little girl, we went into lockdown when she was 1. So she started nursery in the end when she was at sort of 16 months old. It wasn't until I had some space and time to breathe and my nervous system to come down that it was literally then that I remember saying to myself, God, I've really struggled actually. That wasn't okay. And there were definitely points within that 16 months where I thought, God, I'm finding that I'm feeling a bit anxious or uneasy listening to other people's beautiful, empowering births. I'm getting really upset about mine. Or I feel really hypervigilant actually, and I'm finding it really difficult to emotionally regulate with lots of sound, what's that about? I couldn't even see the woods from the trees because I was that sleep deprived. My little girl did not sleep through. Breastfeeding got easier, but I didn't see the impact that my birth had had until about 16 months. And then I could say, and to call it traumatic, I couldn't do that at first because for me, the word trauma felt so big, and I'd worked in military rehab centers before having my little girl. So for me, trauma was like war and these really big events and really big physical kind of injuries and incidences that happen. I didn't really realize the definition of trauma. And I think, like you said, there's been generations of women just sweeping under the carpet and being told to just crack on and move on and not validate their feelings and give them space to acknowledge that that was so traumatic. Childbirth, is can be really traumatic, and it can't, and there absolutely are beautiful experiences as well. We're just told to just, harmonize and be a good girl and shush and crack on. And, no, that is not okay. When things like that happen, we need these safe spaces to talk about it. And we need to know that comparison is the thief of healing and validation, because there'll always be somebody that's been through something worse. And obviously the worst case scenario is that, that you or your baby or, die or are seriously injured, but there's so much before that and within this breadth of that needs validating, because if we don't, then we hold it all inside and it sits with us and it shows up in some way, doesn't it? It wasn't
And it affects your child. That's the thing.
course it
So
does.
even if people, I know people think, oh, mum's just moaning on, but it's like, well, but it's also impacting the child, which will then grow up and have trauma as well. Things like primitive retained reflexes, mental health condition. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes with it, which is why you need to invest to make sure that it doesn't happen in such an extreme fashion. Yeah, as you say, childbirth, however you do it, is a massive trauma to the system. It can't not be. You're producing another person out of yourself, but there's ways in which the whole experience could be made better so that healing is quicker and both mother and child feel supported, for sure. And those around them, their partners, their husbands, their partners, other family members, they don't feel the trauma because they carry it as well. Someone they love has gone through that massive, painful experience. Of course, that's going to impact everyone around them. Let's move on, although we could talk about this part forever, but there's more to come. So after Lily May came, you then had a miscarriage at 9.5 weeks. I'm going to go straight to the next thing, which is you told me you experienced a very rare ectopic pregnancy. Can you tell us the story of that? Oh, that wasn't the miscarriage. That's a separate thing. The ectopic pregnancy, was it?
Yeah, two losses. Yeah,
two losses.
We couldn't really think about having a baby for such a long time. But when Lily May was about 2.5, when she was 2, we decided to, to think about it. And yeah, we had our miscarriage at 9.5 weeks, which was absolutely devastating. And I work in perinatal trauma and loss, and I'd started to work in it. So I knew that it was an experience that is more common than we think, but you're never prepared for it to happen to you. So the grief of losing, everyone's different with terminology and language, but for me, for losing our baby was just heartbreaking. And for my husband as well. And, we briefly said it affects everyone, birth trauma. My husband definitely was experiencing the impacts of living through the impacts of that birth trauma as well. So then to come on to loss, that was just devastating. We then waited for about 4 or 5 months to try again. And this really rare form of ectopic pregnancy, I never heard of it before, so most of ectopic pregnancies will be experienced where your egg develops and implants in your tube, your fallopian tubes, one of the tubes. But this kind actually leaves your reproductive organs, or it actually stays in your ovary. But there's a gap, I didn't know, between your ovaries and your fallopian tube. And the egg can come out and it can implant in the abdominal abdomen or the cervix. And for me, our baby attached to my C-section scar in my abdomen. And I remember being in the scan and the woman sort of said, yeah, we can't see, you know, your egg, your baby. We'll just have to, and then she went across the scar. And then I went into another room and they started talking about the fact that your egg is outside of your reproductive system. And I said, hang on a minute, how does that happen? Like I know quite a bit about anatomy. I've done a degree in sports rehab, but then I've learned a lot more about reproductive sort of anatomy. How's that? And couldn't believe it actually. And I guess I was lucky in a very unlucky situation that it was early, that I didn't need lots of intervention because ectopic pregnancies can be so painful and, require surgery and have really, really big consequences actually. But again, that left us, thinking, God, is this secondary infertility actually? What? And just devastated again and again scared to try again because how much more can we go through? But we did try again, and really, really luckily we've ended up with our rainbow baby Rosie. But that pregnancy was just full of anxiety and fear for me. And I've done a lot of study after Lily's birth into trauma and our responses and, how we can support ourselves. So for me, it was just managing that throughout the whole 10 months, just remembering to breathe really, and seeking support in a very different way because pregnancy after loss is really scary. I think until you hold that baby in your arms, you don't quite believe that this is going to end in a baby that's alive and here. And so there was that, and then there was also, processing different layers of birth trauma, preparing for birth again. So it was a lot, and mothering as well, my eldest. So I seek support.
So just for people listening who are unfamiliar with the term, so a rainbow baby is when you've lost a baby and then have a live baby after that.
Yeah, I guess you call it a double rainbow actually. If you've had two
Yes,
losses, then it's you there's all terminology like that. But yeah, rainbow baby is a baby that you have after loss. Yeah.
And you had, I believe, another technical term, a VBAC is called, isn't it? When you have a vaginal delivery after a cesarean section. So so that's obviously a much happier outcome and the birth was better. Can you talk us through the birth of Rosie?
Yeah, well, it's actually called a HBAC when you have them at home.
HBAC, is it? Okay.
I'm having an extremely medicalized, long cascade of intervention, birth to a home birth. And I've got tingles because I'm delighted that was the outcome for me. And I fully know that is sometimes isn't for women. They don't have a healing birth, but it was so healing for me. And, I seek support from a doula. And that was key for me because we need women when we birth. We need solid, grounded women that believe in you, that will hold space for you to have preferences within your birth that really matter. And, I think about Lily's birth and it's not so much what it ended up looking like, it's what it feels like. And so I remember working with my doula and I'd ring her up in tears after midwife appointments because the amount of advocacy I had to have in that pregnancy was, Jesus, it was, I'm a mother of advanced maternal age. I was 30, was I 38? 39, I'm 40 this year. And Rosie's 1. So that was something. The fact that I wanted to have a VBAC was another thing. There was a lot of risk and I was just told about all the risks all the time. And so I like research. I was looking at everything and my doula was for me so that I was informed. That was key for me. What is the risk of rupture? That's the biggest thing with a VBAC. And then because I wanted a home birth as well, I didn't have a total phobia and fear of the hospital, but I wanted to be left to birth in my own time, and if I'd had a long birth again, labor again, I knew they would have been at me with interventions and suggesting, not being at me, suggesting interventions. It felt like they'd be sort of, it would feel like that though. And when you're in labor, having to like come out of your body and advocate for yourself in that way is really difficult. You're busy. So my doula just knew my story, knew what I wanted, and was my rock really. My husband knew a lot more about the things that really mattered for me. And we just sat down and said, okay, if we're at home, what's important? If we transfer, what's important? If I'm on that operating theatre again, what is important to me? What can we ask as a preference, and advocate for? And that felt nice to think about it in that way, of all the spectrum of how I might birth. And then I just remember having to try and let it go. I also had gestational diabetes actually as well, in this pregnancy. And so that was another risk factor, because sadly the home birth teams had folded in my area as well. And they just don't have that training on how to deal with and support babies at home that might have low blood pressure, low blood sugars. So harvesting colostrum was a big must for me. So that was managing risk to have Rosie at home. We didn't know we were having a little girl. But yeah, there was just so much to navigate in that pregnancy. But I just visualized, having this water birth at home in front of the fire. So much so I had a joiner put a sliding door in to the room to section off and make it private from the kitchen diner. And it was a 5-hour labor. My little girl was upstairs asleep. I'd just set all her birthday presents and balloons up, and my waters broke at 5. I'd had some reflexology. I was like, yeah, just, just if you want to press somewhere, that's fine. Because all along the hospital were like, right, if you haven't gone into labor by 39 weeks, we'd like to bring you in for an induction. I said, okay, thank you for your opinion. No, thank you. Well, what about a sweep then? It's not intervention. I said, you're going to put your fingers in my vagina. That is intervention. So no, thank you.
I think so, yes.
I was following loads of accounts as well that was just, again, giving me information, but also kind of empowering me to that I have a choice in this, actually, to, yes, respect the medical system when we need it. It does save lives, but I just wanted to have a chance to do this myself this time. So yeah, kept refusing any sort of intervention. But at 38 plus 6 days or something, I had some reflexology, which I guess I know people would say that's an intervention in itself. But just that at 5 o'clock my waters broke, and then I was doing all the things, getting things ready for my little girl's birthday, and at 11 o'clock at night I thought, I'll just go to bed, not much is happening. I'd rung my mum. She came round because she was going to be at home with us whilst I birthed, if we were still at home with my husband as well. And just it all happened so quickly. It was so intense, but I felt so empowered, and I watched a lot of positive birth stories. I watched a lot of feedback stories. I tried to find, there's not many actually, H-back stuff online, but did a course as well about VBACs, and I watched people give birth because I wanted to see what it sounded like, what it looked like, to get, I guess this time, have a bit more faith in myself. Because with Lily, I was like, oh, this isn't what I've seen before. But actually, all I've seen is stuff on TV, which is a shit representation of what birth is. It doesn't, So I wanted to really see it and for it to feel familiar in a way that wasn't in my body. And I think that massively helps, actually. And I just remember saying to my husband, don't put the pool up yet, because if my labour stalls, I had this big thing about, it's probably going to take 2-3 days again. And I tell you what, I did a course with spinning babies, and I massively recommend this. I found it incredibly supportive, because the midwives went through all the stages of labour, and when things stall, what positions you could try, the things that you could do to help bring balance in the pelvis, open the inlet, the midsection and the outlet. And for me, biomechanically thinking about it like that massively made sense. And I wish I'd known it with Lily, because that's what happened, there was imbalance in the pelvis. And so much so, actually, I went to the osteopath in my last kind of few months leading up to birth to just make sure my pelvis was nice and balanced and to help birth. And I think a combination of all my daily sort of yoga and the chiropractor and the courses and my doula and creating this safe space at home and just massively all helped. And I know it's a second birth as well. And so but I really went into it thinking, well, I don't know what birth is like because I only got to 7 centimeters, but actually I'd done most of it, a lot of it, before. And so my body did know what it was doing. And yeah, I more or less birthed the head before the midwife got to us. And then I just, yeah, it was such an instinctive birth as well. I just remember standing up when I felt I needed gravity and lunging when I felt that I needed to, create, well, whatever I was thinking. I don't even know. I just remember thinking, I'm going to lunge here. And then I birthed her, and it was just incredible. I was in disbelief when I got her out of the water and I held her. My doula is a photographer as well, so she took some pictures, and the look on my face, I just couldn't believe that I'd done it, that it happened like this, that she was here, and when she cried, I just thought, oh, she's here and she's safe, And I just remember sitting back and saying, oh God, I did it. I did it. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's what it feels like. So, and I had all the things. I had the delayed cord clamping. I sat with her on me. We delivered the placenta, and I just, she was still attached and all the things. And yeah, I was just at home. And then my little girl, when she woke up, I birthed her at it was 4:30 in the morning, 4:35. My little girl got up around 7. So the midwives were just starting to leave, and my doula and everyone had cleaned up, and it wasn't as messy as everyone's like, oh my God, home births, but it wasn't that bad.
So she wakes up on her birthday and there's her little sister.
On her birthday.
Unbelievable.
My husband went upstairs and said, Mummy's had the baby. She's downstairs, there's other people here, but I'd said to my mum, can you please bring the presents and the balloons in? Because I can't move. I don't want to move. And I want to, be here for Lily's birthday and share that with her. So I was sat on the sofa holding Rosie. And yeah, we just did presents, and it was unreal. We were just like, this is mental, this is crazy, as if they were born on the same day, how crazy is that? And yeah, it was a similar time, actually. This is possibly odd. I remember being in the hospital, and it was about 4:30 that I then went downstairs to try and birth Lily in the pool. And then Rosie was born in the water at 4:30 at home. I don't know. There's just like a do-over. There's not a do-over. Like everyone said to me afterwards, oh my God, you did it. And that was the language I used. But they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Da, da, da. How much better is that than Lily's birth? And in a lot of ways, God, it was easier. It was so much easier. People say, oh, too posh to push and cesareans, and they are so hard to recover from as well. The recovery was so much easier. And again, I think it's really important to say it doesn't matter what it looked like, it's what it felt like, And so, yeah, it was so healing. Lily's birth was still in ways beautiful as well, because she's here. And actually her birth led me to the work I do. And I think that led me to so much healing as well that wasn't just my birth trauma. So I'm, in a way, I'm grateful for that experience above and beyond Lily being here and well and acknowledging that it wasn't okay, because it did lead me to grow. And we talk about post-traumatic growth in so many ways. And it led me to, like, I was hurting so much following that. I just went to science. I wanted to understand what was happening. Why was I struggling so much? why is my metabolism still affected? Why is my digestive system affected? Why am I so hypervigilant? Why am I hypersensitive to sound? What's gone on in my body? And it's led me to the work I do now. And so
Yes,
I'm,
so tell us a bit more about that. So, as you said, as you neatly moved on to, we talk about post-traumatic growth as opposed to stress. And
yeah.
it's, you already grew from your first birth to your second. I mean, that's so empowering hearing about how your body knew what positions it needed to be in to make it a good, as best a birth as it could be. So tell us a bit about Fly Mama, how you set it up, and a little bit about what you do.
So yeah, Fly Mama is an online platform which includes support for women during their pregnancy and postnatally, and also if they should experience perinatal trauma and loss. So one of my best friends, Michelle Norton Hughes, is a women's health physio, and when I had Lily, I remember ringing her and saying, "What do I do for C-section scar recovery?" And she was talking me through like tissue healing and scar tissue massage and all these things. I remember saying to her, you know, I had a lot of separation anxiety with Lily. And so going to classes and just anxiety in general was so like it took so much out of my system. I didn't go to postnatal like mum and baby classes to heal physically. And I was looking at things online and there wasn't much out there and there were videos that I couldn't do. And I remember saying to her, can you just send me some stuff? Can you set up a platform that's for mums that maybe don't have childcare or don't feel comfortable going out and want to heal in those moments that they've got and energy, when they've got some energy or time. And then when Lily went to nursery, I said, actually, why don't we set this up? So we actually set it up after Lily went to nursery. She's based in Hampshire. I'm up here in Yorkshire. And it was COVID, so it was online. And we set up a membership supporting women during their pregnancy and postpartum. So I deliver yoga, breathwork, meditations, matrescence coaching, gosh, the huge shift in identity that we experience when we become a mum, we massively change on so many levels. Then when we weave trauma in on that shifts our identity too. And so piecing ourselves back together, is massive physically, mentally, emotionally. So we started the platform and it just was really successful. It was good for us too to connect with other women, whilst we were all inside. It was so isolating and stressful, wasn't it, COVID? And what we found after about the first year, probably 8 months actually, was that women were coming to us saying, I had a traumatic birth, or I've experienced loss, early pregnancy and baby loss, TFMR, stillbirth. We had a lady with us who sadly lost her child at 2 weeks old, and we'd supported her throughout her pregnancy. And so we just knew that we had to and wanted to straight away continue to support her. So we put on separate classes because, for her, she couldn't come to a postnatal class where all the other women that were pregnant when she were there with their babies. It would just be too triggering. And so we started to, and it was definitely something I knew I wanted to offer on the platform too, the birth trauma element. We started to offer separate classes and our members were coming, some women were coming to us that had had early pregnancy losses like 6 years ago, but had never processed it. So we're having sharing circles and classes to help women to, when they feel triggered, emotionally regulate, to really be able to manage their breathing, improve quality of sleep, all the things that are impacted when our bodies are going through high levels of stress and grief. And then I experienced my losses too. And I just thought, I knew from a personal experience then that there is such a lack of aftercare and support during pregnancies after loss and birth trauma. For me, I got a leaflet and well wishes. And well, if it happens again, then we can start supporting you differently once you've had 3 losses. And I was just like, this is bullshit. This is not good enough. Women are sent home to sit by themselves and try and get over and through this. And there's no getting over loss, you move forwards with your grief. And where are the tools to build around that then? Where are the communities to sit and listen to other women and feel less alone? And actually, for the women that experience loss from stages of their pregnancies where there are a lot of physical changes, where do these women go to heal? Where is the information, the professional information that you can trust, and the support? So we are so proud that over the last 2 years, then, you know, we just started recording content. We've grown our MDT. We've got other professionals that have come to add content to our bundles. And, fast forward, we've run an Innovation UK grant to improve our products and start trialing it. We're now trialing our perinatal trauma and loss bundles with the NHS Trust in Chester and the Milk Bank there, with Hampshire Hospitals and their bereavement service, with the Forget Me Not Trust in Huddersfield, which is a bereavement charity. And we are launching a trial next week with the police department division of the police in Wales. And it's just growing and growing, which is beautiful, because these women and families, need our support. They're at home and they're struggling and they're feeling isolated. And we know that services are out there, but there's waiting lists, and people don't know how to talk about these things. People often don't give you permission to, again, with that whole, at least your baby's here and alive, or, oh, well, it probably wasn't meant to be if you lost your baby then. And what the fuck is, people would say, sorry, I'd swear a lot, but people say things and don't realize how hurtful it is. There is no reason that is good that my baby died, people say things and it's just so hurtful. And so yeah, bringing women together is kind of the fundamental and foundation of what the platform is, really. And then giving them, you can access it with an app. And we've had women's feedback of, God, I was out walking and I felt triggered and I just pressed play on your video and I felt safe. I felt like you were there for me in that moment. I felt like, so this real accessibility of support in the moment is key as well. So yeah, Michelle
sounds brilliant, Kelly. Really does. Tell people how they can find Fly Mama. Give us your socials.
Yeah, so we are on most of socials. So we've got a website, www.flymama.co.uk. You can buy our products and access our support direct to consumer. So you could go on our website and there's 2 different pages for, pregnancy and postpartum support, and then really specific pregnancy and postpartum support following trauma and loss. And that's how you access it, as a sort of direct to consumer. If you work for an organization and you're listening to this and you think, actually, we could be a piece of the puzzle, jigsaw piece to the support that you already provide, then we're piloting at the moment they're year-long trials, so we can always come and set up a bespoke trial with you too. We do MDTs once a month with clinicians that are leading support at the different organizations. And yeah, we're also looking at as well conversations to look at how we can support businesses and workplaces to support their staff better whilst they're at home on mat leave or bereavement leave, and return to work, to help retain that talent and just enhance that person's well-being. So there's different ways that you can access our support and work with us. And we've also just launched an affiliates program as well. So we've got some doulas, wonderful doulas. God, I love doulas. And psychotherapists and motherhood support coaches and women's health physios that run clinics and work with individuals that are affiliates for us. So we're, again, just a tool within their toolkit that they can offer their clients should they need our support. So lots of ways, really. And we do need people's help. We need your help to get the word out there and to put this into the hands of women and families that need it,
Yeah. I'm sure people will.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Mothers Uncovered, we're just joining you as an affiliate. So we're going to finish talking soon, even though we could talk for much longer. So Mothers Uncovered is a creative peer support network where women come together to share their experiences of their pregnancy, birth, and what it's like to be a mother and their matrescence with us in a supportive group. So as a little nod to our creativity that we do in our sessions, we like to end these with a song or a poem that our guest has chosen that means something to them about themselves as a mother, anything in an association with motherhood. So which song have you chosen, Kelly?
I'm laughing because it's from a It's from a film that my eldest loves called Spirit. It's about a horse, and it's a film that she absolutely loved, and it came out when we lost our baby, who we actually named Hope, from our miscarriage. And we watched it, and the song, she just loved it, and so it always reminds me of that time. But the lyrics are beautiful, and it's called Fearless, and I think it really does, for me, remind me that we are stronger than we think. Whatever happens in life, we can move through and forwards from it. And just to remember that you are stronger than you think. So I hope people like the song when you play it. And it's a beautiful song.
I'm sure they will, Kelly. It's been lovely talking to you today. Thank you for sharing your story and the story of your work with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Honestly, these spaces are gold. So thank you for the work you do, Maggie. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.